One soul. You will hunt one shining soul, while all others turn their backs on vengeance.
Talos Valcoran, born on the murderous world of Nostromo, had taken his first life during his boyhood. Before being taken by the Legion to undergo the gene-altering process, his mother sought to prevent Talos from taking the path trodden by so many others on his world. Murderers, gangs, and rapists, they ruled the violent streets of Nostromo. It was in his boyhood years, alongside his best friend Zal, that he was chosen to be honoured. They were to attempt the trials to become Space Marines, Astartes, the Angels of Death. After passing the trials faced by all Astartes aspirants, Talos joined the Emperor's wars amongst the stars as an apothecary, bringing compliance through extreme acts of violence that appalled their nobler brother legions, with the forces of Dawn and Vulcan being the loudest against the brutality of the Night Lord tactics. Their brothers didn't understand their ways. They didn't even attempt to understand their ways. Talos, however, understood that worlds could not be conquered through words and gestures alone. He understood that humanity understood one simple emotion: fear. In a memory, Talos shows us where this lesson was truly learned. As a riot continued around him, Talos lays into the human tide in front. Their meaningless surrender came too late. Their blood will run as an example to the rest of the system that will quickly fall in line. His bolter falls silent, no shells left to puncture. His chainsaw, it clogs, unable to clear the raw volume of flesh it has torn. His hands are his only remaining tool. He punches and chokes and wrenches the life from all within reach. A call within the Vox network. It was an Imperial fist.
Brothers, what madness is this? Are you insane?
The Imperial fist gasps. If only they had brought compliance to this world sooner, the Night Lords would have never came. Once the Heresy came, the Night Lords were quick to ally with the traitor Horus, with Talos joining his father in the bloodshed of the false Emperor's forces. His hatred for his brother legions, blind faith in humanity, disgusted the Night Lord. Talos was there. He was there when the false god's palace was sieged. He was there when his traitorous brothers descended into arguing and bickering, and he endured where others fell to the temptation of their dark gods. Talos remained defiant. It was during the Heresy that Talos began to suffer from horrific seizures, in which he inherited the curse of his father, prophetic visions of actions that will come to pass. These seizures, often lasting hours or days, causing Talos incredible pain, often causing his power armor to seize, attempting to protect his superhuman frame from causing damage to itself, in the throes of his titanic fits. The son of his father. Talos foresaw the death of his father, his willing death at the hands of an assassin, and worst of all, he would be unable to stop this. For Konrad had chosen to die. He had chosen to die at the hands of the Imperial assassin, Emshen.
Death is nothing compared to vindication.
It was after one vision, Talos travelled to the Legion's fortress on Tasulga. Alongside First Claw, he met with his gene father, who had long given him the title of Soul Hunter, although Talos understood little yet of what this title might mean. Konrad had foreseen his death at the hands of the assassin of the Emperor, and gathered his sons to forbid them from pursuing vengeance upon his killer. All but one would listen. And despite the objections of his brother, once the assassin had made her kill and fled the fortress, that Talos would break his father's last command. Talos pursued her relentlessly, eventually managing to mutilate and then brutally kill the assassin. Hatred burned within him. It was after this act that Talos finally understood the title adorned to him by his father. The Soul Hunter. One soul, hunted whilst all others turned their back.
You will die. I knew that this would come, my lord.
He breathed.
Because you have seen it. I hear your dreams. We share a curse, you and I. The curse of foreknowledge. You are like me, Soul Hunter,
said Konrad. Following Konrad's death and the shattering of the Legion, warbands of warriors formed around figureheads within the Night Lord ranks. Talos, along with First Claw, had joined the warlord Vandred Anrathi, the Exalted, known for the demon which had possessed and twisted the sergeant's form. This follower of Tzeentch was a master at void combat. Following his possession, he was able to navigate his warship, the Covenant of Blood, into appearingly suicidal positions, only to achieve his ultimate goal of his enemy's destruction. Whilst Talos grew to hate the demon that possessed Vandred, Talos had sworn oaths to the man that he would not break. He still respected the Astartes within. Talos saw his brother's allegiances to chaos as a weakness that could be exploited, and whilst the 10th Company would remain relatively taint-free, cracks would begin to show within First Claw. Talos leads the squad known as First Claw, consisting of notable members. Syrian, a devotee of Slaanesh, he secretly feeds on the fear of the Legion's serfs. And whilst valuable to Talos, Syrian is hated by the rest of First Claw. It was he who deceived his brother after the discovery of the butchered crew, and Syrian used this butchered crew to feed his dark urges, blaming this bloodbath on the raging Urzaz. Urzaz, a Khornite berserker bent on wrath and fury. Urzaz is hated by all of First Company for his mindless slaughter of crewmates and his complete, undisciplined battle tactics. Urzaz, despite his moments of lucidity, the once noble Astartes is uncontrollable in battle. Uncontrolled ravings emerge from the Vox. Cries of death to the false god and skulls from the skull throne emerge within the throes of battle. Despite the occasional usefulness of this immense bloodlust, it's often to the detriment of First Claw's unit coherency. However, honour is still found within the frothing rage. Zal grew up in Nostramo with Talos, and Zal was known for his terrifying skill with a dual-handed chainsaw grip, bringing First Claw much notoriety within the Legion. Zal is perhaps one of the few Night Lords which Talos has formed a de facto kinship with. Talos and the Night Lords struggle to exist within a galaxy that loathes them, unable to find resources or parts to repair their damaged armour, and forced to scavenge from their fallen foe. Talos is the owner of one exquisite artifact treasured by the Sons of Sanguinus, and it was rather amusing how many times they had failed to attempt to reclaim this blade. Less amusing was the amount of times his brothers had attempted to take it from his hands. Talos trails one such party within the innards of a ship which ventures to capture his precious blade. They had sent initiates. Initiates to challenge First Claw. First Claw tore through them, shattering their pitiful attempt at reclamation. It was then that Zal informed them that the real angels had been found. 5 blood angels, standing, waiting for an honest fight.
You know this is your fault, right? You and that bloody sword,
said Zal.
It keeps things interesting. Besides, I treasure every curse they scream.
Stammered Talos. It was then he fell, the words dying in his mouth. A shudder, and then his head snapped high as he dropped to the floor and screamed.
No! Not now!
Growled Urzaz.
Guard him, Syrian. Urzaz and I will kill the angel,
said Zal. An hour and 16 minutes had passed by Syrian's chrono when an explosion rocked the deck, and 2 hours later, when Urzaz's voice finally broke the Vox silence to inform them of their success, he sounded weak and full of bitterness.
You sound like you got shot. What was that explosion?
said Syrian.
He did. And a plasma rifle. No idea why they brought one of those to a fight inside a ship, but it made for a brilliant target. But who shot us at? An initiate from behind with a sniper rifle.
Syrian closed the link immediately, trying to prevent his brothers from hearing his roaring laughter. Like many of the traitorous Astartes, the Night Lords kept a host of serfs and servants upon their mighty ships. Septimus, the seventh, was the chosen servant of Talos, and he was chosen for his unique skill set which he had developed and displayed. Despite his low stature, Septimus enjoyed freedoms and developed a seemingly close relationship with his master. Septimus was to repair Talos' armor, and we also learn that Septimus is capable of piloting a Thunderhawk gunship, a seemingly immense task for a mortal to undertake, even with a co-pilot. It is clear that Talos is fond of the human, and when one of his squad mates taunts Septimus, Talos is immediate in his rebuttal. Perhaps there is a shred of humanity left within Talos, as whilst his squad regularly killed, maimed and brutalized their serf, Septimus was left unharmed. Newest to join was Octavia, the Eighth. The Eighth is a captive navigator, used to assist ships traverse the tides of the war. Octavia was captured from a mining vessel the Night Lords plundered for salvage and slaves. However, Talos had foreseen her importance. He had foreseen her presence there. Talos snatched her, with the members of First Claw and Septimus accompanying him. An unwilling servant at first, Octavia soon assists Talos to achieve his goals.
Viris kol ratha, dat sethikaratesh, das sovalian. Sol ruthis vesajas.
And what exactly does that mean?
She shouts at Septimus.
It doesn't translate well.
He said.
Throne of God, at least try.
Sons of our father, stand in midnight clad. We bring the night. It means, brothers, wear your armor. We go to war.
Septimus told her. Above the world of Kryth, Talos would meet with the War Master Abaddon, the Despoiler, and would be sequestered by him and his dark gods to be a part of his plan to take over the world from the corpse god's servants. However, Talos wasn't aware of a plot against him by the Exalted to get rid of him as the leader of First Claw. He sensed a rivalry forming with Talos. Talos and First Claw met with the War Master on his battle barge, whilst the Exalted would take part within the Void Warfare, seeking to destroy the Imperial fleet that sought to free the defensive forces. Talos, along with First Claw, would travel with Septimus and Octavia within the Thunderhawk, the Blackened. It is on Abaddon's battle barge that Talos would reject Abaddon and his dark god's offerings of immense power, disgusted at the offer of servitude to any one of the dark beings. It was also here that Talos learned that it was the twice traitor Psyker Astartes Ruven, formerly of the Night Lords, which had summoned these figures of the dark gods in front of him to test him. Ruven had rejected his oaths to the Eighth Legion and joined Abaddon's Black Legion. Ruven had assisted Abaddon in his plans to capture and convert Talos to a pawn of the War Master. And once the failure of Ruven had become apparent, Abaddon orders Ruven to fulfill one final request for the Exalted, killing that which would allow Talos to rival the Exalted in power, eliminating Septimus and Octavia. Ruven sent 50 slaves to accomplish this task. After escaping the torment of Ruven, Talos finds his way back to the Thunderhawk to find Septimus's broken and blinded body. Septimus manages to tell Talos that they have taken Octavia, and as Talos manages to piece together the broken form of Septimus's body, reassures him that he will get her back. Septimus also manages to inform Talos that the rest of First Claw has been taken back to the Night Lord ship aboard a Black Legion vessel. Talos moves with a purpose he has lacked within centuries. Not since the hunting of his father's killer has he moved so fluidly, tracking and locating Ruven's slaves that had captured and held Octavia. After murdering these slaves, Talos is met with Ruven and informs him on their next meeting, Talos will kill his former brother.
Why did you refuse the palace? Answer me, Talos! Because I am my father's son.